Hello, I'm Darius. I was a student at college. I studied game design and development, and then in uni I did 2 years of computer gaming technology. This here is a project that I've been working on since then, and this video is basically going to act as a portfolio for applying for jobs in the industry, basically. A little introduction to the project. So it's a turn-based RPG with lots of different customization options, both things that will affect in battle, like abilities and classes, but then also like aesthetic things. So I'll get into the game now. Here you'll notice it's grey boxed. I've been mostly focusing on actually getting the code and all the logic there working, rather than aesthetics, because I feel like I may change how I want the game to look in the future, more likely than how I want the actual code to run. You'll also notice that the game runs a little choppy. That isn't an issue when I'm not recording. It's mostly the recording software just being a bit resource intensive. So you can see moving the camera is a little slow. Not unbearable, but not ideal when I'm showing off the game. Hopefully it's still okay to view though. This is just simple overworld movement. You'll walk around in the game, interacting with stuff. A thing to note about this is, with the camera, forward is whichever way the camera is facing. So I can look this way and now press forward, and we go in that direction. But then if I go to, say, about a 45-degree angle, forward is now in that direction. And I just think that's a pretty handy little way to do that, because then you're not like walking what you might think is forward and then end up going the wrong direction. So yeah, now I'll show off combat. Basically this ties into the overworld movement. When you're walking around, if you bump into an enemy, that initiates the combat. So you can see here, boom, we go into combat. And if you look here, it sets up your team and then the enemy team in a line. The lines are parallel to each other. I've not perfected the vectors. I think the issue here is the rotation of the cubes. So you can see they're parallel to each other, whereas they should be parallel, or they should be perpendicular to the line they're facing. So that's the only thing I've not done there perfectly. But you know, I'll do that soon enough. I've still got lots of things planned, so you know, that's just one of the things on the list, don't worry. So combat, if you've not seen the previous video, which I don't recommend, I should be covering everything here and then some, and further explaining. But basically combat is done turn-based. It's not everyone gets one turn, then it starts again with the next fastest. Instead, the faster you are, the sooner you are to attack. So if you're fast enough, you could attack 2, maybe even 3 times in a row. So yeah, that's just what I've come up with here. So you see the 3 options here: fight, item, and escape. We're going to focus on fight because that's the one I've fleshed out. You can see here, you've got regular attack, test A, test B, warrior strike, and wizard beam. These are all just names of attacks, basically. So if I go to skill manager here, you can see it's got a bunch of different empty game objects, which have a particular script to them. And these scripts are inheriting from a base attack, basically. You can see here I've got base attack, and this holds all the information for any kind of attack, and then these are just variants of it. So you can see this is just a test one with random stuff. But then say warrior strike is a high power warrior attack, and you can see here, so along with name and info for the player, there's also the power, which is how much damage it will do, the cost, which is how much MP it will consume, the effect name, so if it has any extra effect, which at the moment it doesn't have, the level, which is basically what level your character needs to be to use the attack, and then the range, attack type, and attack reduction. So the range is basically who it can target. So I don't believe the little drop box shows up when I record, but basically the values for these enums are enemy, ally, self, all enemies, so targets all of the team, all allies, so all of them, and then hero team, which basically is it can target any ally or yourself, and then everyone just affects everyone, or can affect anyone. So that's that. And then attack type and attack reduction is basically what strength it's pulling from, or what offensive stat it's pulling from, and which defensive stat it's targeting. So you can see here physical and physical, but I can change this to magic, so uses the magic stat. Average, which uses the average of the two. The highest, so it just picks which one is the highest. A combination, which might be a good boss attack. Basically it combines the magic and physical attack. And then heal, which is for heals. Then likewise you've got attack reduction, so magic, average, if I can click it, lowest, so again picks the lowest of the two, and then for heals. And then you can see here on Wizard Beam, similar deal there. I mentioned classes and how they have different things and their levels, so you can see here there's a list of basically all the skills they can use, and we'll see that the warrior, I've got a warrior who isn't level 3, so he won't have warrior strike, he'll just have the base attack. Whereas this guy, I believe, is the test class who just has everyone. So if we go back into fighting, we can just do regular attack. You can't see it from here. I can change the camera though. You can see that arrow there, and I can basically scroll through all the people, left and right, and it cycles is what I'm trying to say. So you can see here it cycles. So here if I press left, it'll go to the furthest one, and likewise if I press right, it'll go to the earliest one. So yeah, and that basically does that. So here's the warrior with the lower level, as you can see, only as the regular attack. So yeah, that's the combat. Hopefully I've shown that off well enough. It's not so pretty yet, obviously. Don't have animations implemented, don't have like actual characters, they're just cubes. But you can hopefully see the kind of processes I've got going on behind the scenes. I'll show off a bit of code in a bit, I think, just so you can see that. One last thing I didn't show off though is the abilities. Basically, there will be abilities, as you can imagine, and so that might affect how the combat goes. So it could be something static, like just gives you 10 extra health, or it could be something like vampirism or something, or like a life drain basically, where you deal damage and then you heal yourself like half of the damage you dealt. Or it could be like a counter ability, or it could be I don't know, you get a higher crit rate when you have less health, for example. And if you see here in my base ability, so what all the other abilities are going to inherit from, there's a lot of options here, and it's going to be really customizable. This isn't even everything I've got planned. This is mostly just for affecting stats and then a few conditions. So you can see here, activation, and this enum is basically when does this ability get triggered. So is it on equip, so when you equip the ability, turn start, so is this at the start of your turn, sorry. Before damage, so this is basically before damage is calculated. It could be a boost to your attack, for example. After damage, so after your attack is calculated, again, could be does an extra 5 damage, for example. After getting a crit, so similar sort of deal there. Then when you take damage, so that would be when you have like your counters. Enemy defeated and enemy fallen, basically regarding like when you defeat an enemy in battle. You got ally fallen, so this would be like a good revenge sort of thing, like oh, if your ally gets taken out, you then gain an extra 10 attack or something. On death, so when you die, before getting healed, similar to the damage, and then after getting healed, or calculation for that, when you get revived, and lastly when your turn ends. Then you've got all these stats, and these basically are how much it affects each stat by. So for example, you could use a poison ability rather than like a status effect, where on your turn end you lose 5 health, and that's as simple as that. And then it'll find your health and subtract it by 5. And yeah, that's basically all of these. This is just obviously in depth, so the raw stat is basically your stats for like the character without any kind of modification, whereas here is the modification itself. So that would be like your buffs and things. A few things here which aren't implemented yet, but you can see I've got groundwork for. Percentile, so if it's off, it'll do a fixed amount of not damage, but it'll influence the stat by a fixed number, whereas percentile will change it to a percentage. So instead of, say for example, this poison taking 5 health, you could then change it to 5% of your health. That's basically all that does. Then here we've got things for enemies, so basically conditions on what enemies need to be present or your target in order for abilities to work. So like a bug crusher ability or something. So if the enemy is a bug, then that would have to be ticked, and then when you fight a bug you do extra damage or something. That kind of idea. Haven't got all the categories for enemies yet implemented, so just undead, bug, and holy enemies, or opposite gender or same gender, just to show ideas. Then we've got a few, I wouldn't say niche cases, I'd say like almost like exceptions, or extra little notes. So here is if unspecified gender counts as the opposite. So if you had something here, say not rivalry, but maybe like you take less damage from opposite genders, this tick here basically allows for things that have gender unspecified to count towards that as well, and then likewise for same gender, just here. And then lastly we've got dead active. Basically, does this ability trigger while you're dead or not? So yeah, obviously like things like when you attack wouldn't trigger, but say a permanent like aura you have could then like buff allies even when you're dead. So yeah, that's poison, and then I drafted up a few other ones. So here's an example of just getting extra health. So you can see here, HP raw is increased by 10. Happens when you equip it, and just name, info, that kind of idea. And then momentum, so you can see here, grants 3 attack and 6 speed when defeating enemy. So enemy defeated increases attack by 3 and HP or speed by 6. So yeah, that's that. That's why I have all these different things, is so it can change multiple values at once, rather than being like limited to only influencing one stat. So yeah, that's enough about abilities. I think that kind of shows off a lot of like groundwork, basically. Like apart from implementing when they get, like how they get triggered, I've got the conditions for like checking for like when they get triggered. So you'll see that here, it basically is a for loop for like, goes through all the abilities you've got. If any of them trigger at the particular point when it's denoted, so say at the start of your turn, it'll look for ones that say turn start, and if so, and then just there after if so is what I just need to do, where influence the stats by that. But because they're not all going to influence stats just like that, I'm just testing a few things first, and so that's why I haven't got anything to show you for that part, but the rest of it's all done, all the checks like that are done. So yeah, basically similar to the classes and the skills, it's just a matter of like adding new ones and customizing different properties rather than you know, having to hard code a whole bunch more stuff. A lot of the groundwork here is already done. Same with weapons. I haven't got weapons yet, but I've started work on base weapon. So you can see here, ignore the massive amount of space, but basically we've got like weapon type and weapon damage, and so yeah, that'll be included as well. So next, let's look at dialogue. This is just a simple thing you can do, kind of like interacting with enemies in the overworld will initiate combat. You can walk up to NPCs and chat to them. So you can see here, this is line 0, and then it says more things. This line poses a question, so yes or no, and then you can just answer that. Next line, and then this basically shows that you can have more than one line, basically, so like it'll go through each, and that's it for now, and then you can go back to walking around. And if I go to the cube here, and you can see down here is the dialogue script, and so basically each line is customizable, and what this allows is for each individual line to then pose a question or basically options if needed. So you can see these ones have none, basically they don't do one, and then this one where I said now I'll ask a question says yes, no, and basically that will bring up a yes box and a no box. And that's all I've got to implement, or all I've got implemented now, but I could add, you know, further questions, maybe a choice between 3 things, or, you know, maybe someone's quizzing you on something. It does get the value of the box, or the answer basically you give, but it doesn't do anything with that just yet. That's stuff I'll add soon enough. Things like that and pause menus are like quite high on my list of what next, so feel free to keep an eye on this space, because hopefully soon enough I'll be updating it. I'm working on this in my free time, so it's not super fast development, but you know, I try to do as much as I can. I'm a bit of a hard worker, and I love to just get stuck into all these projects and like really work as hard as I can and do as much as possible. That's basically all for dialogue now. Lastly, in terms of like gameplay and stuff, is this cube here, and this is for the character creation. As I said like at the start, there's going to be lots of customization. So if you talk to this guy, brings up a new character basically. You can see that it actually spawns the model here, and you know, that's obviously going to get changed. This will be probably have a background to it, so there's no interruptions. You know, you don't have all these random stuff around. And so navigating through this, you can see going to the top left, go up 1 brings you to bottom right, down from there brings you to the top left. All these loops and stuff I think are quite handy to make a note of, just because it's quite important. And you can see here these are features that I haven't got yet, just giving my options open since I'm not working on aesthetics and stuff just yet. These are just placeholders, whereas here these do work. There aren't actual meshes assigned to them. So I've got here this character asset list, which basically denotes like all the different meshes for different kinds of things, and so that's what these are pulling from. So you can see here there's 3 different kinds of bodies, and so you can see there it starts at 0, I can go right and it says 1, then 2, and then 0, and then going backwards I can go back to 2, and so on and so forth. Same with the hair, same with the legs, same with the hands, same with the torso, you know. So that's that basically. So yeah, that's that side of it. I'll also show off the height. This might be better in the first video because I didn't have all the placeholder stuff there, so it was nicer to see. So if you look here, my height is 90, I can increase that further, and this is basically changing a blend shape I've got, and now at 100 I can then go right once more and it goes to minus 100, and then that's basically the lowest value, and likewise. So if you see that the blue figure, you can see him compared to the purple figure, which is like your default one. So at minus 100 you can't really see him because he's smaller than it, but then at 100 he's actually bigger than it, so he shows through. This isn't the only part of the character creation menu though. So if I go here, you can see this is for other features. So rather than aesthetic stuff, this is your name, your class, and then personal abilities. You got your class abilities, and then any extra abilities. So extra abilities are just in case there's anything else. Class abilities will be like, so if you're the warrior, you might gain extra strength or something. You know, that kind of idea. And then personal abilities are ones you can customize. So if I then click on this, you can see it goes over to that skills menu on the right. And so these are basically all of the skills you're going to be able to choose between. And just navigating it, you can see I can go left, right, up and down, and that's just done by having an array of rows, and then just having a bunch of them, so then you're increasing basically like coordinates, I'd say. I did something like this for a flight booking system back in uni. I don't think I have that project anymore. Technically uni owns all the projects you do there, so I didn't look about keeping everything, so it's only anything I've still got as a backup. So yeah, that's that, and then save changes and exit, you can say yes or no, and then, you know, that's that basically. And that's all I've got really to show off for the game itself. I did say about showing off code, kind of handy if this is a portfolio for doing gaming and stuff. So here's my my attack function. I've just gone to here because it's quite a meaty function, so like there's a good bit of code here I can show off. Immediately you can see there's a for loop and a switch case, which I guess are quite handy to know that I'm familiar with, rather than just if statements within if statements within if statements, you know, and making everything all cluttered and not run so smooth. So we start here with two variables. This is basically this is what your attack power is going to be, this is what your defense is going to be, and at the end, once it's gathered everything it needs, it'll compare the offense to the defense. So here we can see, like I said with the abilities, there's a for loop that goes through every ability you've got equipped, and if its activation is before damage calculation, here it will apply the abilities. Then it'll go through your attack type, and that's basically what that's in the skills where it said like physical, magic, average and all that. Basically this is it calculating what to do for that. So you can see here the average, the highest it works out the highest value, combination adds a 2, and then these two just pull from your actual stat. And then exactly the same for the defense, and then here you see that will consume your mana. Here is adding the power of the actual skill, so you know where Warrior Strike had a power of 10, I believe, if I remember correctly. So that would then add the 10 to that. If you don't have a weapon, or if you do have a weapon, sorry, then it'll add your weapon damage. And then you can see here is your damage to take, is the attack damage minus defense. And the attack damage is your offense plus the weapon damage. So then you have the for loop to work out your after damage calculation abilities. So that would be like modifying it after the damage. Then we determine the crit, so you have a stat in your character called skill, and essentially for every 10 points of skill is an extra percentage of crit rate. There's also going to be weapon crit rate, so you can see here weapons currently don't have extra values, they only have their damage and their weapon type, but they'll also have like things like crit, extra effect. So for example, you might not have a skill that does damage to undead enemies, but you might have like a holy weapon that like does extra damage to undead enemies. So that's where like that would turn up. So then you can see like if it picks a random number and it's less than your crit rate, then hooray, it gets a critical hit, which just times your damage by 3. Then it'll say, okay, after you do crit calculation, you know, extra abilities applied there. And then lastly, you know, finds who you're targeting, makes them take damage. Take damage is a function which requires an input of an integer, and then just basically subtracts your health by the damage it is getting, checks for any abilities you've got when you take damage, and then checks if you're dead. And check if dead is basically if you've got like 0 health or less, then you die. So you could see when we did the combat that objects were getting removed, those cubes were getting removed, and that is basically check if dead statement. Well, check if dead, then if it does check if you're dead and gets true, then you die, and that in die is where you actually get removed. So speaking of enemies dying, something I haven't mentioned is gaining levels actually is a thing. I didn't show it off. There's a lot of little things that aren't so showy, but things that work or things that have some groundwork. I kind of gloss over them, so I need to really, you know, show you all the nice things I've done. But you can see here, if you're an enemy, basically you will give the ally team XP based on your XP yield, and then gaining XP is a thing I've got as well, just here. And you can see it has an input of an integer, increases your XP by that, then checks if you leveled up. And then what happens here is, instead of leveling up and then gaining XP and then level up and then gain XP and level up, kind of like old school Pokemon, this is much more streamlined. It'll check for how many levels you gain. It has to do this every single time you level up, because or every single time you gain a level, simply because the amount of XP needed will increase as your level goes up. And this basically accounts for that. And then afterwards, once there's no more XP to gain, it works out how many levels you've gained and makes you level up by that. So you can see here there's nothing about gaining stats, but basically that'll come soon enough. Again, things like that where it's like I've got lots of it worked out, and then just a few little things that I haven't fleshed out because simply because like I might change the way that I do level ups, whether I have it fixed or whether I have it like randomized, and then you have different growth rates. Again, that would be customizable stuff. So, you know, a lot of consideration there. A few things like that where I haven't settled on a design, but a lot of stuff here where I've got like actual functioning code and it works really well and it's quite efficient. So I believe that's everything I wanted to show off today. Hopefully I haven't missed out anything like that. So one more thing I wanted to show off, I completely forgot. I wanted to do this in the character creation part, and I completely just forgot that was a thing I did. So I made this like kind of crude rudimentary character, just to show off and play with blend shapes, basically, because this was my first time doing this. A lot of stuff like here with RPGs and stuff are like my first time doing it, and I'm really like learning from myself, like working out what's the best way to do things. So you can see here there's a nose, so you can customize that. It was just the first kind of recognizable feature I could come up with. So you can see I increased the depth, decreased the depth so it's more flat, increased the width, decreased the width. And obviously you can combine these for whichever way you feel. You know, and obviously it won't look as crazy as this in the final game, because this is just a placeholder. The height, this is probably a good thing to mention, is my consideration to how much these values are. So this is 1.2 times the size of a character, like the default model, whereas this is 0.8 times. And so you could see there where they were both increased. Since it's the same distance between the default, it balances out to be the exact same height. I just thought that was a good kind of thing to mention, a little consideration like that. Lastly, my favourite part is this ear. Basically, is kind of a human ear here, but if we increase this ear point value, you can see it becomes more pointed. So this might be like a, I don't know, like a goblin or an orc, and then out here you can see that's probably like an elf or something. You know, and it's all about just letting players customize their characters how they see fit, you know, the kind of things they like and all that. So that's that. So yeah, I believe that's everything. Again, I've probably forgotten stuff. You know, like the AI, for example. Basically, you saw how enemies didn't do anything. And currently that's because they have no speed, but they also are AI controlled. So a character can either be player controlled or AI controlled when it comes to combat, and if they're AI controlled, they'll be pulling from an AI, basically, which I'll have here. I've done a bit of work on behavior trees and all the different nodes for that, so you know, I quite like AI, and I'll probably get really invested into doing lots of stuff like that, working out, you know, what's a good attack to use now and what's like a good person to target and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, yeah, stuff like that I've probably glossed over a lot of. That itself isn't super interesting, you know, it's literally just a singular value and it's checking it at the moment, and then if it's player controlled, it'll let you control it, and if not, it does nothing. So hopefully I haven't glossed over anything super important. I probably have, but hopefully you can see there's a lot of groundwork here, a lot of really good thought processes, and really lots of logic here. And yeah, like, hopefully this shows off the game and myself really well. There's a lot more to myself and my coding capabilities that don't show on this, simply because of the kind of game it is, and the resources available to me. You know, I've done a lot of sort of interactions, kind of like what I've got now with the Overworld movement and talking to people and all that. I've done more on that. I've got a few videos on this channel. Again, they suffer from the same issue as when they're being recorded. The frame rate just chugs. So yeah, it's a little painful to watch, but if you can get through it a little bit, you can see interaction with colliders and stuff. I've got a collection game, I've got like an escape room in UE4, I've got a little top-down game, which was actually quite interesting. It was, one of the things to note about that is it had to be played only using a mouse. It also needed a unique resource, and it needed to be procedurally generated. So you can see in that game, you know, it's point and click movement using nav meshes, the unique like resource kind of thing, or unique system being like your exposure and your bloodthirst. So you're playing as a vampire trying to sneakily get around town and killing villagers while you can. And then procedurally generated, you reach the end of a goal in one part of town, it loads a new part of town. And that's basically that. Feel free to check them out. Obviously, like as I said, they're not great to watch, but if you want to see more things I can do, and like I'm not limited to any specific kind of game. I'm still in my early days of programming. At least outside of education, because I've done 4 years of education in that regard. And yeah, hopefully this is a good portfolio, or just if anyone is interested in the game that I'm developing. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for your time. If there's anything you want to ask, or any kind of constructive criticism you want to leave, feel free to comment. If you're a potential employer, please feel free to email me. In any application I've already submitted, there should be my email there, along with, CV, cover letter, link to this portfolio, obviously. Any potential employers I haven't applied for, feel free to get in touch with me, either through a comment here or anything else. There should be an email link on my channel, I'm not sure on that, I might check. But yeah, these are still early days. This doesn't show off everything I can do, but hopefully this gives you at least a little good taste of some things I can do. And yeah, I'll leave it here because otherwise I'll ramble on forever. So yeah, thank you once again very much. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you soon.